Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. And this world, it always feels like it's getting crazier every day, doesn't it? And what I'm going to talk about today in this video is terrorism. Now, I know that I'm going to get like the monetization on YouTube is going to go right out the window probably as soon as I say that word. But I've been thinking about it a lot this week because, with the revelations, the person that was responsible for the Southport stabbings in the UK, had an Al Qaeda sort of manual in his possession. Easily downloadable off the internet, I hasten to add. It's not something that's difficult to get. This is the problem. Now, I could download it, I think. I don't want to download it, though, because as much as I do quite want to read it, and I may end up looking at it someday just for research purposes. But yeah, I don't want, the police raiding my computer and finding it's already got God knows what searches on it from all the different cases that I do. I don't want them finding terrorist literature and then I'll probably end up in prison or whatever. But, it's like, it's so easy these days, isn't it? Everything's there on the internet. Anything you want, you can find it. You just got to Google it. And of course, terrorist literature or extremist literature, not only, Al Qaeda, but far right extremism, any extremism you can think of, you can find it on the internet or find a way of, joining a group. You don't even have to go out your bedroom. This is the thing that I think is especially scary these days. It's the same with sort of child P and things like that. Years ago, these offenders, they would take a chance, but they'd have to go out and try and find people similar to them. It was much harder years ago, wasn't it? Now, boom, off you go on Google. Find a group. If you can go onto the dark web, which I've never been on, I don't want to go on either. But apparently you can go on there, you can find anything online. You don't even have to go out of your door. I think that's quite scary because at least if you had to make the effort to go out, take the chance of going out talking to people, not knowing if people were like you or not in your thoughts, whatever they are, whether it's terrorism, child P or anything. Now you don't have to do that. You can just sit at home with a cup of tea or a wine or cigarette or whatever and find all these awful things online. This is the negativity of the internet, isn't it? So this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about a few things, but mainly terrorism and the different forms that it takes. What is it? And then we're going to talk about, has it got more prevalent in this world now? Because we're so polarized now, aren't we? Everything's black and white now. When I think back when I was young, we were very political. It was a political age when I was young in the 80s. And there were riots and there were, political statements, etc. But I don't think it was quite as nasty as it is now. I don't know. Everything seems so aggressive. People are so aggressive. Debate has disappeared, and not only amongst populations, but amongst politicians. Now we've got to look at Donald Trump for the next 5 years, spouting his bile at everybody. It's I remember a time, I'm old enough to remember, when British values in particular were tolerance, acceptance of people's views, acceptance of different religions. So what's changed now? Why is it so polarized now? And so it's like either you agree with me or I'm going to kill you now, isn't it? Not only in Britain, but all over the world, all this anger. It feels unsafe, doesn't it? Whether it is really or whether it's wound up by the media, etc., I don't know. But that's how it feels, doesn't it? And yesterday I was out and about. Yes, day. I couldn't wait to get home because, you know, God, if it's not the terrorists that will get you, it's the floods or it's the, you know, off we went to our local Centro Comercial, you know, local shopping centre. We saw 2 accidents on the way, 2 car accidents on the way there. It was like, oh my God, you know, someone's having a bad day, and you're thinking, well, you're going to see a third one now because things come in threes. Then we got to the actual shopping centre, and I said to my son, I'm not parking it downstairs because, you know, with the floods, a lot of cars were caught down in the shopping, you know, in the underground car park. So you won't get me parking in an underground car park again, because these poor people were just trying to either go home or do whatever, and lots of people were trapped and killed in the underground car parks. So I said, oh, I'm going on, you know, on the level. I'm going to park on the level. Well, I think everybody else had the same idea. Couldn't find a parking space. Also, because yesterday it was quite a cloudy day. And, you know, when people are on holiday, they don't know what to do when it's cloudy because they can't go to the beach, can't sit around the pool or whatever. So they go shopping, they go to the shopping centre. So it was busier than normal, than it normally would be. So it's okay, just find a car parking space. Everyone, all the people were like, just how we never had an accident, I don't know, because everyone was just driving weird. Everyone, you know, people are just so irritating, aren't they? Especially other drivers. Anyway, then on the way home, we saw another accident, a really bad accident. I don't know how a guy was on the floor. They were administrating to him on the floor, giving him, he was on a drip and everything. God knows what had happened there. We don't know what happened, but just hope he's all right. This guy didn't look good. It just didn't look good. And one of the policemen that was sort of running around, like sort of trying to organise everyone and redirect the traffic. Well, there was a few police, but one in particular, my son turned around to me and said, "Oh my God, imagine," he said, "that policeman looks about 12. He said, imagine if you'd had an accident and you're looking up and the person that's there to save your life looks like they're about 12. But, you know, he was probably really efficient. But, you know, I think my son must be getting older now then, because that's what they say, isn't it? When the police start looking young, the police and doctors. But he did look young, this policeman. He looked like he was right wet behind the ears, just come out of training school. But, of course, that doesn't mean to say he's not efficient. So that was another terrible accident we saw. I could not wait to get home. I could not wait to get back into the house. It's crazy out there. And the thing is, when you go to a shopping centre or anywhere like that where there's a lot of people, that's when you could be subject to a terrorist attack as well. These are terrorists, they attack crowded places, don't they? Obviously, that's what they want. They want to cause the maximum damage. So, you know, I always hate airport. I hate anywhere where there's a lot of people like that. It is quite scary, isn't it? Now, I have been involved in a terrorist incident many years ago. As I say, when I was younger, all the terrorist threats were from the IRA in Manchester and around Britain. I used to work on the race courses. We would regularly get bomb scares. Regularly, we'd all have to evacuate and wait outside till the bomb scare had been, all cleared. And because, people are idiots and they phone up sometimes and make threats that they've planted a bomb, even though they haven't. So you get false bomb scares. Countless bomb scares. And when I worked in Lewis's in Manchester, in the centre of Manchester, I knew then. We used to get bomb scares when a bell used to go off, like a ding dong bell, and you looked up and there were three lights, and one would say bombs. One light would mean bomb scare. One would mean fire, a fire alert, and I can't remember what the third one was, but there was definitely three. So if the ding dong went off and you looked up and the light for the bomb scare was off, you had to evacuate, or you know. So regularly we'd get bomb scares, but I think they're what you would call not serious bomb scares, because the police operate on the IRA. This is when the IRA were operating. The IRA would phone up and give a warning. Sometimes not a very big warning. They might just say there's going to be an attack or whatever. But the one I was involved in was at the Grand National. I was at the Grand National when there was a bomb scare, and it was a genuine IRA bomb scare, because the IRA phoned up and they give a code. So the police know when they get that code from whoever's phoning up and saying they've planted a bomb, that it's the IRA or not, because only the IRA know that code. And so it was the genuine code that was given. So they had to evacuate the whole of Aintree. You can imagine it was chaos. And, I can see why they call it terror, because you really don't know what to do, because you're thinking, well, do I stay put? Because I was in, we were in the sort of betting shop taking bets. 1 minute there was like thousands of people there all putting the bets on. It's 10 minutes before the Grand National was about to be. And then the next minute, we got this bomb scare and the police are running, going around on horses, shouting at everyone to go, get out. There's helicopters whirring around and, oh, God, it was horrible. It was horrible. Anyway, obviously, I've lived to tell the tale. It wasn't a real bomb, by the way. So that was the IRA planted a bomb under a bus, but it wasn't a real bomb. It was a fake bomb. But it was the IRA who did it. Now, of course, Irish people are heavily involved in horse racing, especially jumps. So it was a big mistake that the IRA did. They never planted another bomb. That was it. They lost a lot of support through that, because they affected communities that probably would have supported them, because there was support for the IRA. So this brings me back to, what is a terrorist? We ban this word around, they're terrorists. What are terrorists? So that's what we're going to look at first. First of all, what is a terrorist? How do we define a terrorist? And then who are the terrorists, most prevalent in today's world? And then we're going to look at some advice from the government about how to not become a victim of a terrorist. We're going to look at how terrorists are particularly targeting young people in this day and age. And I think COVID as well, if you bear in mind that children, young people that were maybe 13, 14 during COVID couldn't go out anywhere and what have you, they're now 18, 19 and coming into a time when, had they been radicalised online, either right-wing radicalised or left-wing radicalised or religiously radicalised. There's all different forms of radicalisation. It's not just Al-Qaeda. You've got far-right movements as well. And, you've got other cult-type religious movements. And, teenagers are a prime target, because teenagers are just finding out what they want to do, forming their opinions. They're in that rebellious stage. They're raging against the machine. They're bucking against their parents quite often. Whatever their parents' values are, they take the opposite values just because they don't want to think the same as their parents. These are things that teenagers do in general. We've all done that, but now it's a little bit different, isn't it? It's, I think of my son, he's sort of, I'm a Manchester City fan and he's a Manchester United fan. That's a lukewarm sort of way of rebelling against your parents, isn't it? I couldn't believe it when he became a Man United fan. But, at the time, Manchester United were winning everything, and Manchester City were in about the 3rd division or something. So he's sorry now, though. He's sorry now that Manchester United can't win an argument. And Manchester City obviously have done really well with Pep Guardiola and, you know, the money injection that they've got. So, you know, that's a sort of an inoffensive way of raging against your parents, if you like, or going the opposite way to your parents' views. So, but quite often politically, you know, teenagers who are brought up in very what's the word, maybe very left-wing households go right-wing or vice versa. And it doesn't matter if they're poor households or rich households, I don't think. I think anyone can get radicalized. Maybe I don't know whether you know, some are more susceptible than others, but that's what we're going to look at. So, okay, first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone. I'm waffling on about a bit. Nightbot has reminded me. Thanks all for watching, liking, subscribing, being members. Those of you who've bought me a Ko-fi, PayPal me, sent super chats, etc. Thank you so much. Your support means everything. That's true. And let's have a look. I'm going to put say. So let me just say hello to everyone. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Yvonne. Hi, Maria. Hi, Bertan. And hi, Nightbot, of course. Nightbot reminds us, why not become a member, etc. So anyway, Nightbot's there just because I always forget to remind people to support the channel, and Nightbot's there every now and again to just remind. Oh, which reminds me of something else. Now, just hang on. I keep reading everywhere that I can give 10 free memberships, but I can't find out how I can do it. I've no idea. I should be able to do it because I've got a lot of members already. I think you have to have a certain number of members already. I can't find out how you do it, I'm afraid. Oh, I've got a bonus. Look, I've been a member for 17 months. Anyway, so let's go back to what is a terrorist. This is what we need to talk about. Yeah. I think, and do you know, Kelly, it's interesting what you say, but you know, I don't think it's only autistic children, you know, that can be radicalized. I think, and it's not only teenagers either, of course. Anyone can be radicalized, but it's harder to radicalize older people, I think, because they've already got their views more or less entrenched to it. So it's much easier with young minds, isn't it? Especially when they're going through a stage like teenagers do, where they're not really sure what their place is in the world, etc. But first of all, I want to just see what is a terrorist, because you know, what we also have to remember is a terrorist, it depends on which sort of the way you're looking at something. Because a terrorist here, according to the Collins Dictionary, a terrorist is a person who uses violence, especially murder and bombing, in order to achieve political aims. And other synonyms, of course, freedom fighter. So this is another, you know, don't forget that Nelson Mandela was, you know, once considered a terrorist. I think Mrs. Thatcher, Margaret Thatcher, the ex-Prime Minister of the UK, she referred to him as a terrorist. Terrorist, you know, is the negative, a terrorist is anyone. I mean, the thing is, it's not just peaceful protests that terrorists use. So it is bad what they do, whoever it is, really, because like the IRA, etc., they would call themselves freedom fighters. But they could be, and the other words here are bombers, revolutionaries. Sometimes it's to overturn, a bad regime. It's a bad regime, but they're still terrorists if they use violence to achieve their aims. So, that's what puts them apart from from protesters, or someone like Gandhi, or, terrorists specifically use violence. But the definition of a terrorist, now Nelson Mandela is now called a freedom fighter, or I don't know, a revolutionary or something like that, and given all that status, but he was once considered a terrorist. So what I'm trying to say is there is a semantics involved in this. This is what makes there's always people saying they're fighting against oppressive regimes. Probably Hamas would say that. But of course, the way that they fight against this oppressive regime is with murder and horrible things that they do, and it doesn't win them any friends, really, because although a lot of people might sympathise with the including me, they sympathise with the position that the Gazans are in, which is terrible, and the Israelis, the things they do are terrible. But that, it doesn't really I think doesn't really make people more sympathetic towards you when you do terrible things as well. But a lot of terrorists, they would say that that's the only way that they can do it, the only way of fighting against the regime and ending whatever regime it is, and it is by violence. So that's what sets a terrorist apart, in my opinion, from a freedom fighter or revolutionaries. They're using violence, especially murder and bombing, to achieve political aims. Now, I think what we've had an increase of course, are these bedroom terrorists. So there's a lot of, we've had it in Spain as well. It's not only in Britain, it's in Australia, it's in America. These things, sort of small acts of violence, not big acts like Hamas or what the IRA used to do and plant a bomb, etc. There's been an increase in these sort of the police always call them isolated incidents. Well, they are in a way, but only because it's just one person that's doing it. But, that might be how it turned. The police are still saying that the Southport stabbings were not a terrorist incident, despite the fact, this young lad, he was found with the Al-Qaeda manual was found. I'm going to download that manual one day because I want to see what does it tell people. And there's been lots of small incidents of terrorism, if you like. There's been things like the Manchester Arena bombing and big events like that, suicide bombers. Obviously, 9/11 is an example, any of those kind of things. But there's also been, just individuals going out like Axel did in Southport and maybe killing a handful of people, or maybe even just one person, so there's been lots of incidents. And sometimes I wonder if we ever get to know all of the incidents that go on. And then there's the far right incidents as well. As I say, this is not just Al-Qaeda extremism. There's extremism the other way as well. So it just, and it makes me wonder what in Britain in particular, I was sort of like British values is we don't like extremism, do we, of any kind? We don't like extreme left and we don't like extreme right. We are a centrist nation, or we always were. tolerant of other people's views and other people's religions. We're a democracy. That's the point of it. That's what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be able to stand up in Hyde Corner, and if people don't know about that, you're supposed to be able to stand up in Hyde Corner in London and give whatever view you like without fear of anybody, as long as it's not inciting violence. But I don't know what's happened in Britain really to that. Hi Chumba, hi Laurie. Okay, so what am I going to look at? So I've got quite a few things that I want to show you. I want to try and not to forget, because sometimes I put things up and then I forget. So, of course, we've got the right wing would say that this two-tier policing, we're too lax on the extreme left wing activists, and then the left wing say that we're too lenient on the right wing activists. Probably the truth is somewhere in the middle. But nobody's happy with policing. As I say, left wingers, or they sort of say the right wing are let to get away with murder, if you like, literally, and the right wing would say the opposite. Anyway, so we're going to have a look at a couple of examples of both. I'm trying to keep a sort of an open mind, and just show how it is, rather than, we all have our leanings. We might lean a little bit left or a little bit right, or a lot left or a lot right. We've all got our own opinions, but I'm going to try and show a little bit of both sort of views, and then people can at the end of the day, people make their own mind up, don't they? So the first one we're going to look at is, this is a group that I didn't know about, to be honest. This is a Welsh neo-Nazi group, and this article is talking about Alex Davis. Alex Davis, who founded in 2013 National Action in Wales. And what this article is saying, so remember, the views that I'm expressing here, unless I actually say my view, I'm just reading out things that other, so don't sort of, I'm not trying to upset anybody. I'm just trying to present both sides of things and have a little think about it, like why, to me, the most important question is, why have we become so polarized? I don't remember it being so polarized when I was young. And is it the internet that has contributed towards that as well? Because people feel more free now, don't they, on the internet and social media and etc., to say what they think. But of course, it is resulting in prison sentences now. So probably the biggest Nazi of the lot. That's how jurors heard Alex Davis, a terrorist hiding in plain sight, described during his latest trial. So he was, at the time of this article in 2022, he was 27. So how could he have formed it in 2013? Oh my God, so he was young then. Anyway, Davis, 27, from Swansea, co-founded the neo-Nazi group National Action in 2013. He had seen it grow from its small base in South Wales to a national organisation, a judge said. And he was convicted of membership of a prescribed organisation between December 2016 and September 2017. He was jailed for 8.5 years during sentencing. So quite a long sentence. So I presume he's still in prison. So National Action was one of the most extreme British far-right terror groups since World War II, and its members openly celebrated the death of Joe Cox MP and called for a race war. And one expert said the group was so extreme you couldn't go any further. So apparently Davis was once pictured giving a Nazi salute in a German concentration camp, and he remains an ardent National Socialist with extreme far-right views. So that's the real extreme on the right. His organisation preyed on young people, grooming them to follow his racist beliefs. He lived in upland Swansea and his parents disagreed with his racist views. Describing himself as polite and high-achieving, with others referring to him as bright and articulate, Davis said he survived school and college but got into trouble at university. He joined the far-right British National Party. I remember that when I was not that young, maybe 30s. I remember the British, the BNP I do remember. But they never got in. You know, now we have actually got sort of far-right people in Parliament, haven't we? So he joined the far-right British National Party as a teenager and was identified as a potential extremist through the Prevent Counter-Terrorism programme when he was just 15 or 16 years old. Now, so where did his views come from? Did he have his own views, or maybe somebody groomed him? I don't know. From 15 or 16. So a few years later, he left university when his far-right beliefs were exposed. He then focused much of his time in growing National Action from its base in Swansea, heading up the Southwest branch. And so here he is doing a Nazi salute at Buchenwald concentration camp. Nice guy. So he attempts to spread his beliefs far and wide, his attempts to spread his beliefs far and wide led to ambitions to stand for election in Swansea in 2017. He wanted to stand as a county councillor. Oh my God. So Detective Superintendent Anthony Tagg said he remained a danger. He said he admits he still holds that ideology, but states there's nothing wrong with him holding that ideology. He's free to have those thoughts and ideas. But we would say that these are very dangerous thoughts and ideas. Someone who sought through violence to forward neo-Nazi ideology, we would say remains a very dangerous individual. So remember, I'm only talking about Britain here. In whatever country, I know I have subscribers from different countries. You'll have your own people like this, left and right, and of course, Muslim extremists. The extremists. One thing they have in common, obviously, is that they're extreme in whatever ideology it is. So working with partners and others, we will seek to continue to mitigate any risk Alex Davis poses to communities across the UK. However, Davis was far from the only member of National Action with links to Wales. So here's another one, Ben Raymond. He coined the term white jihad and was jailed last year for being a member of National Action. Mikko Veiviläinen, a serving British Army soldier based at Sennybridge Barracks. A self-confessed racist, he built up a private arsenal and wanted to turn the village of Yanselin in Powys, where he had a house, into a white nationalist stronghold. He was jailed in 2018. Gosh. I mean, looking at this Ben Raymond, if you ever saw anybody who looked like a far-right extremist, that's it, isn't it? Good God. So, Alex Deakin, a former student in Aberystwyth, ran the West Midlands branch of National Action and spoke about modelling the group along the lines of the IRA and Viet Cong. He was found with 2 explosives manuals, including a guide to making explosives, and was convicted to membership of National Action. In 2015, Zach Davis, a 25-year-old National Action member from Mold, Flintshire, used a hammer and a machete to attack a Sikh dentist in a Tesco store because of his skin colour. He shouted "white power" during the assault and was later convicted of attempted murder. He had earlier posed for a selfie in front of a National Action flag while holding a blade. Several members of National Action had read and accessed copies of the manifesto of mass murderer Anders Breivik, who killed 77 people. God, I remember that incident. Mostly children, in bomb and gun attacks in Norway in 2011. So members held vocal rallies up and down the country dressed in black, reminiscent of Oswald Mosley's fascists of the 1930s, delivering Nazi-style salutes and carrying flags, some stating Hitler was right. So Alex Davis has become the 19th person to be convicted for membership of the banned fascist group. So he was the founder, the galvanizer, the recruiter. And he freely admitted he was a neo-Nazi. Okay, so that's the extreme right. Yeah. Let's have a look now at. Of course, you've got people from the extreme left as well, and they're whinging. They all whinge about This is a socialist worker magazine, which of course is a left-wing publication, and they'll be very pro-Palestine. And they're saying that cops are criminalising climate protesters. They are criminalising climate protesters. I don't know if you noticed, but these climate change protesters, they're getting really harsh sentences. When you think that they're trying to save the world, really, and if you look at what's happening around the world weather-wise, the climate protesters, they're not extreme left or right. They're, anti... but the thing is, people don't like their lives being inconvenienced, and people don't like the climate protesters because if they, glue themselves to the M1 or whatever and do so and make an inconvenience to their lives, people don't like that. So people aren't bothered, when they get in prison because they're like, oh, well, yeah, made me late for work, or I couldn't get my mum to the hospital, or, and things which are important, don't get me wrong. I mean, it is irritating, isn't it, when if you can't do what you want to do because some climate protesters super glued themselves to the road. But they do get big sentences when you think about it for peaceful protest. Palestine activists and anti-racists. So now we've got the left now complaining that they're being targeted. So, but the thing is, they can't do things. To me, it doesn't matter if you're left or right. You shouldn't really be doing things like this. The way to influence politics, that is, if you as soon as you start using violence, you are really slipping into that terrorist sort of slot, aren't you, really? As much as you might, I would love to see an end to the war in Gaza. I just think, I'm not pro-Israeli or pro-Gaza. I'm pro don't kill any more effing children, please. It doesn't matter to me, all these arguments that these people have about religion or politics or whatever. I couldn't care less. All that matters to me is that children are being murdered by whichever side they're being murdered by. So, now what they're saying, what the left wing are saying, under cover of heavy sentences for far-right thugs, the British state is locking up anti-fascist Palestine campaigners and climate activists. So they're complaining that, too many left-wing people are getting locked up. It underlines why socialists should not cheer on the state and the police or see them as a solution to the rise of racism. I really do think, whatever you think of the government or the police or whatever, they can't win really, can they? Because whatever they do, someone's going to hate them. Now, Ricky Jones, a Labour councillor, has been charged with encouraging violent disorder, and so he should. I mean, that man, during a speech against the fascists, just because you're talking against fascists does not mean that you can say we need to cut their throats and get rid of them. That's what he said, Ricky Jones. So he said we need to cut their throats and get rid of them. How is that any better than what the right wing is saying? And he's a councillor. He should know better. He's a person in a position of responsibility. So anyway, the Labour Party suspended him and he's in jail and will be remanded in custody until his hearing on the 9th of September. Labour dumped him. Well, I'm not surprised. Let's see what happened. Ricky Jones. Did he get a sentence? He should have. You can't go around saying things like that. Oh, his trial is in January next year. So he's pled not guilty. Let's have a look at this. So this is the guy. Ricky Jones has pleaded not guilty to encouraging violent disorder. So saying that we should slit someone's throat, is that not violent disorder in this world, in this crazy world that we live in then? Is that not violent disorder? It's okay, is it, to say, we should slit someone's throats? So it says, oh, dear me, because he was seen saying it in a video. Just admit it, Ricky. You said it. You're a fool to say it. You should never have said it. So videos had emerged online reportedly showing him telling a crowd in Walthamstow, London, that far-right demonstrators needed to have their throats cut. So I'm sorry, this guy deserves to be in prison. He deserves whatever they throw at him, because I think, and he should get more than most people, because he's a councillor. He's in a position of responsibility, authority. He should know better. And apparently he said we need to get rid of them all. So, as far as I'm concerned, there's no difference between him and the others. So there's two sort of extremes. It's not right. Any of it is not right, is it? Now what? Oh, now I wanted to show you this, because here's another. This is a Tommy Robinson, of course, has been jailed, hasn't he, as well? So they seem to be taking a hard line. Hi, David. So they do seem to be taking a hard line. Anyway, let's hear about Tommy Robinson going to prison. You may know or may not know he's in prison at the moment.
The far-right activist Stephen Yaxley Lennon, also known as Tommy Robinson, has been...
Stephen Yaxley Lemon, of course, Lemon. I think Lemon's probably more accurate. I should call him that, actually, instead of Tommy Robinson. Why doesn't he use his real name? I don't understand why he doesn't use his real name. And people think he's just a tool of like the Israeli state or whatever. And, I don't know if that's true or not, but it wouldn't surprise me. He just stirring, a lot of these people, they're just stirring up trouble all the time. And, I'm a great believer that if you, depending on what you believe in, if you believe that the world is run by some like the Masons or who are them other people that they say it's run by, I can't even remember what they're called. It's likely that if there is like a global conspiracy, it's likely that they'll have people like little Shorty, Yaxley Lennon, stirring up trouble, because divide and rule, the best way to stop the people from ever rising up is to divide and rule. So you set the Muslims against the Christians, you set the women against the men, the blacks against whites, the Sikhs against Buddhists. So, that's divide and rule. That is how you control societies. Because if the people realize that if they would just get together and be like more, instead of all the little groups within us, like ethnic minorities, or as I say, gender differences, or what, instead of concentrating on them and just think, well, what have we all got in common? We're all like just struggling from day to day, and then we've got all these bloody billionaires that control the whole world. Look at Elon Musk now. Elon Musk is in government. He's never been elected. I cannot, honest to God, that's really all going to end badly over there, I think, really, really badly. Where there's too much power now and money concentrate, that I just can't even bear to think about what's going to happen there. And when a man like Elon Musk, who's so sort of, just acts on whims, doesn't he? But he's got power and money, and now he's got political power as well. So he's got everything. He's got, more money than anybody else. He's got and power because of the money that he's got. And now he's actually got political power. It's scary. It's terrifying. Why don't he do something positive with all his money? That it's like if all the rich people. Oh, anyway, don't get me going. But so I forgot what I was saying. I get so carried away about Elon Musk. I really do, because I just hate to see what he's doing all the time. So little Yaxley Lennon, he could easily be like a stooge that's been put there to stir up things, just like left-wing ones. That's how you stop the people from rising up and realizing, that they're just being stamped on every day. Really, if you the people that we should be looking up, not looking down at people. You look up to all the people that have got all the wealth in the UK. And the king for a start, and the royal family and all that, and where all that wealth is, and then other people, can't even afford to feed their children or buy baby formula. That's not right, is it? But tell you what, the problem is not with the different ethnic minorities or religions or whatever. The problem is with the people up at the top. Anyway, let's have a look what he's doing, what he's up to. So he's in prison anyway, Yaxley Lennon.
Being jailed at Woolwich Crown Court for 18 months after admitting contempt of court. Let's go live now to our crime correspondent, Martin Brunt. It's not the first time he's appeared in front of a judge, Martin. What was it about today?
No, it's not. I mean, he's effectively been jailed for repeating false allegations he made over the past 2 years that were in breach of a court injunction. He had talked about a 15-year-old Syrian refugee schoolboy, Jamal Hijazi, 3 years ago. That led to a libel trial that Yaxley Lennon, Tommy Robinson lost. And then there was an injunction that banned him from ever repeating those false allegations. Yet he, for 2 years he didn't, and then he started repeating them in online interviews and in a film. He made a 90-minute film that was shown a number of times. So he's been jailed for 18 months. The judge could have given him a maximum of 2 years, but he gave him some time off, some leniency for a guilty plea. We have been expecting a 2-day trial. At the start this morning, his lawyer said that he was admitting 2 charges of contempt of court, effectively 10 breaches. Some online interviews, some showing of that film. The lawyer for the Solicitor General said that the film had been viewed extensively online and elsewhere. Millions of times, particularly when the controversial influencer Andrew Tate showed it. 2 million people watched that version of it.
Andrew Tate, so all the best people, Tommy Robinson's in with all the best people. Good old Andrew Tate, another one.
The judge said that the breaches were not accidental, negligent, or merely reckless. They were deliberate, direct, and flagrant. His lawyer, Yaxi Lennon's lawyer, said that at all times he was following his principles. He passionately believes in free speech, she said, freedom of the press, and his overwhelming desire is to expose the truth. He believes the public has the right to have all the truth, not just what's provided by the mainstream media.
Well, we agree with that, don't we? Of course, people should be able to think more about, to find out their own information on social media, not just about and people should be able to make their own minds up, and they should be. But this is the problem with freedom of speech, isn't it? Is it freedom of speech to say you think Hitler was right? Should you have the freedom of speech to say that? Probably not, or where do you draw the line? It's a very difficult line, isn't it? I think all of us on this channel will agree with freedom of speech, but where do you draw the line? What are the, if you believe that Hitler was right, and there will be people out there who do, what are you allowed to say that? Should you be allowed to say that? Where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? It's a very, very difficult line to draw, isn't it? Because someone could just turn around and say, oh, well, that's my freedom of speech, say that. That's my opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion. We all say that, don't we? But are you, when it's an opinion that casts hate on another religion or another race or whatever, are you... is it freedom of speech to make those sort of comments, or where do we draw the line? I just don't know where the line should be drawn. I think it's very difficult, and especially now with social media, etc., because we're so fragmented now, aren't we? How many YouTube channels are there? And then you've got Twitter, then you've got Facebook, you've got Snapchat, you've got, there's millions of social media platforms. I can't keep up with them all. And, whereas years ago, it was just like what you saw, you had 4 channels on the telly. It was a big fuss when Channel 4, when Channel 4 first came out, it was like, this exciting new channel. And that was it. That was all you had. The radio, maybe, but no social media, nothing else. Newspapers. Suppose there was newspapers, but of course, all the newspapers. What we have to remember aren't the mainstream media. Certainly in Britain and probably in America as well, though I'm not sure. In Britain, the mainstream media is owned by millionaires who are pushing the right-wing agenda all the time. There's only probably the Guardian and the Daily Mirror who go for the left-wing agenda. So anytime you read in a newspaper, if you really think you're getting an unbiased view, you're not. So whatever. Yeah, and this obsession with phones, God, but do you know, Laurie, it's right what you're saying. You can see it's the adults as well, isn't it? I had a friend that we'd go out for dinner or whatever, and literally all the time we were out having dinner, she'd be on her phone talking to other people. And I just think, what's the point, And then she didn't only do it with me, she did it with everyone. So then if she was out for dinner with somebody else, she'd be messaging me. Like, her whole life was around Facebook. It was like it was real, you know. And you know, I go on Facebook and I go on most social media, mainly connected with work and the YouTube channel, of course, you know, because I find things out on there. But I know it's not real life. I know it's not real, and sometimes you have to step back from it. Sometimes I just have to turn it off for a day or whatever, because it can get to you, you know, it can get to you. So, and I'm a, you know, a mature person, if you like, but how is that for young people? Though sometimes, like, I think my son, he would say that young people, he copes with it back because he knows not to take any notice of it, and because he's grown up with it, maybe. But, dear, stop it. So yeah, it's social media. It's got its good things and its bad things. It's like everything else. There's positive things, there's bad things, negative things. You know. Anyway, okay. So now we're going to look specifically. Let me put some windows down. We're going to look specifically at how young people are targeted. Now, this that we're going to look at. Hang on. Where has this booklet come from? This is the American Enterprise Institute that we're going to look at this. They're talking about the exploitation of youth by terrorists. Tackling the terrorist exploitation of youth. So this is from 2019. So we have to remember there's all kinds of terrorists. You know, there's religious terrorists, left wing, right wing. Each different country will have their own terrorists, you know, in Africa and places like that. There's child soldiers. There was a brilliant film with the guy who plays Luther, about child soldiers and how, you know, their parents were killed. These children, their parents were murdered, and then the kids were taken off to be soldiers. Absolutely heartbreaking, you know, how young people, and even when you look at the Troubles in Ireland, you know, young people were brought up to hate. You know, there were the two sides, weren't they? So you've got the unionists. Children were brought up to be unionists and hate like the IRA and the Catholics and what have you. And then on the other side, you've got like the Catholics and the IRA sympathisers brought their children up to hate like the soldiers and whatever. Just hate it. They start encouraging people to hate. The younger they start encouraging people to hate, the better, isn't it, for brainwashing? And that'll be the same now in Gaza and Palestine, and that there'll be, you know, when you've got two sides so intractable like that, you know, so terrorism probably starts, or extremism, I should say, starts often within the family. But these days, because that's the difference these days now, because of the internet and that, doesn't have to come from the family. So obviously, you know, if you were brought up by an Israeli sympathizer, you're probably likely to be an Israeli sympathizer unless you rebel against your parents at some age. But then what would you have done? Like years ago, if you were brought up as a, let's say, an IRA sympathizer by your parents who were sympathetic towards the IRA, years ago, you wouldn't have really known how to break away from that, because you would have lived in an area, you know, it's very segmented, isn't it, in Ireland, in Northern Ireland. You would have lived in an area where everybody had the same views, and you couldn't really have broken away from that. Whereas now, oh yeah, just get on the Google. You know, you're an IRA sympathiser, but you want to be an Ulster Unionist, just get on the Google and, you know, do it on there. You can do it on there. without having to go to it, actually physically go anywhere. Same with Gaza, Palestine. You know, if you want to become a Muslim, or if you want to, anywhere you want to radicalize yourself for whatever reason, it's easy now. Anyway, so this picture is Rachel Daniel. So this photo here, yeah, this is Rachel Daniel. This is her daughter who was taken away, and this is her son. She holds up a picture of her abducted daughter, Rose Daniel, and as her son, Bukar, sits beside her at her home in Maiduguri. I don't know where that is. So Rose was abducted with more than 200 of her classmates by Boko Haram militants from a secondary school in Chibok, Borno State. Oh, I remember that. Do you remember that? Yeah, they went and took all those children. Anyway, so young people are a vital source of support for many terrorist groups, with roles ranging from cooks to armed fighters. But the ways young people are recruited vary widely across contexts. In many cases, young people join terrorist groups because they are duped, trafficked, kidnapped, or forcibly recruited. So I think that's what happens maybe in these, more far-flung countries, etc. There's a lot of kidnapping or trafficking, etc. You know, children made to be recruited. But I think the difference in the Western, you know, these kids that are sat, this bedroom terrorism, as I call it, you know, kids that are sat at home just maybe feeling disaffected, maybe their parents don't care about them, or maybe, listen, often kids, young kids, they think their parents don't care about them, even though they do. Sometimes it's a sort of phase that they go, oh, nobody cares about me, you know, nobody's it. And you only realize as you get older that actually, yes, your parents did care about you. But sometimes you can think that they didn't care about you just because they won't let you, you know, they don't let you do everything that you want to do. So I think that's what happens more in Western societies. People join terrorist groups voluntarily, owing to the appeal of a group-based identity, perceptions of exclusion, grievances, or cultural threats, the promise of economic stability, prospects of fame, glory, or respect and personal connections, including family and friendship networks. So yes, things like Al-Qaeda, groups like Al-Qaeda, of course, they promise, you know, everything in the next life, don't they? You know, yeah, go and blow yourself up along with a load of innocent children, because then you'll go on to the next life and you'll get, you know, everything you want in the next life. So, you know, when it's a disaffected, you know, people who are perhaps feeling excluded from normal society, maybe someone who's been bullied at school, you know, it can be all sorts of reasons, or it could be just, I'd like to have a look at the White Widow, the story of the White Widow one day, who was, you know, in love. It was love that converted her. She fell in love with a terrorist, if you like. So, you know, there's love can do it. There's all sorts of reasons that they might do it, but young people are obviously more susceptible than others. And it says the vulnerability of youth to terrorist recruitment can be affected by a multitude of factors, including their geographic proximity to a terrorist group, which of course you don't need to be geographically close now, economic vulnerability, perceptions of social or political marginalization, exposure to permissive social networks, and exposure to extremist propaganda. So I'm not going to read out the whole thing, but just thought that was interesting. And, you know, what can you do? So there's a few things you think, what can be done then about this? Surely the actual social media sites themselves. They've got to take responsibility, haven't they, for the content that they allow to be shared on their site. Surely they've got to take responsibility. And of course, the parents have got responsibility, but I know from experience, you try and get in a 14, stop it. You try and get in a 14-year-old's room and see what they're doing on the computer. It's just virtually impossible. You know, it just, you know, you can't, they're good at hiding things from you. You know, you might think you're in control of what they're looking at on the internet, but then you're not. You know, you have no clue. They're much cleverer than you at hiding things because they're much more techie than you are. You know, how they'll, you know, if you say to them, oh, let me have a look at your phone, or let me have a look at this, or let me have a look at that, they'll show it you, but you don't even know what, you know, they've probably got loads of stuff hidden on there that you don't even know about and you wouldn't know how to find. So, you know, it's easier said than done, isn't it? Now, what I want to do now is to have a look at what the government says, our government, the British government, about all this. Oh, actually, oh no, yeah, I'll do that first. So, of course, the threat of terrorism in the UK is high, and probably is in most countries where you've got a high level of immigration. Where would it not be high? You know, these days. Sometimes, you know, people talk about a jihad and a white jihad or whatever. What difference does it make? But are we in a jihad anyway? Just really, when you think about the whole of society, the whole of life, there's always been a jihad of one sort or another, isn't it? Because we've always had wars. We've always had people with different opinions and then thinking that they can inflict their opinions on other people by violence. You know, and I think what we've got to remember about all these people, they are extremists, whether they're right-wing extremists, religious extremists, left-wing extremists, they're extremists. And the majority of people, the vast majority of people are not extremists. Live and let live. You know, oh, yeah, what's your religion? Oh, that's fine. You know, I don't go along with that, but you know, that's fine. You're not going to hate someone because they're a certain religion or a certain skin color. Well, most people wouldn't, you know, like, so you will get some people that do. So what I'm trying to say is surely 90% of the world is not going to be extremist. But then you've always got this other percentage, and they're the ones that make life miserable for everybody else, don't they, one way or another. Anyway, so this is the counter-terrorism policing's safety advice for the public. Because, yeah, when I was saying about yesterday going out and seeing all these accidents and that, and then thinking, oh, I'm not parking in the underground car park in case of flooding. I didn't want to go in the bloody shopping centre in case of terrorism. You know, I don't like it. Well, I didn't. That wasn't really true. You say I don't really think about it too much there. But whenever I'm in an airport, I think about it. You think, God, you know, where are you safe? No wonder people don't like going out. You know, nowadays, what is it? Staying in is the new going out. People don't go out now as much as they used to. And I think during COVID, people got comfortable in their homes. You'll get some people who were dying for COVID's finished so they could get out and about again. But there's loads of people that got quite comfy being at home, you know, getting your food delivered, everything's there on the computer. What do you need to leave home for? You know, and you feel safe, you feel comfortable at home, and then you felt safe because you weren't out catching COVID. But it sort of takes over you a bit, and I think it probably took over a lot of people. There's nothing that you can't do at home, really. You can even, you know, nowadays young people meet each other online. You know, if you didn't go out when I was young, you would never have had a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever, or a friend. Probably, you know, you had to go out and meet people. Whereas now you don't even need to go out for that either. Just get on Tinder. Anyway, so this is the British government's advice for staying safe. So staying safe at gigs and festivals. Counter-terrorism policing wants live music fans to be safe and be sound as it collaborates with the UK's biggest music venues. Here are some tips. Arrive early for extra security measures. This will help prevent delays in getting into the event. Now, you know, I am all for security measures. Honestly, I don't care if I have to wait an hour in a queue for a security measure. When we went to see Eminem at Wembley, there was quite a lot of security before you could even get into the venue. I'm quite happy with that, thank you. Airport security, give me the most security, because then I feel more confident then. Be patient with security checks and don't give the security staff or stewards a hard time. Might seem inconvenient, but these measures are in place to help you, to keep you safe. Don't bring unnecessary items to speed up searches. If you spot anyone acting suspiciously, report it to police or security staff. Don't leave it to someone else. If in an emergency, always call 999. Don't leave bags unattended. And never agree to look after anyone else's bags, no matter how genuine they seem. If there's an incident, listen to staff and any announcements. And remember, the chance of being caught in a terrorism incident is small. But if it happens, run, hide, tell. Staying safe at sports events. Let's see. Arrive early again. Minimise what you carry. Be vigilant at all times. Ring 999 if you see anything. Listen to the instructions. Now, if told to evacuate, do so immediately. Do not wait around to film events on your mobile. Yeah, because everybody wants to get video now, don't they, from things. Move right away from the stadium as quickly as possible for your safety. And once you are safe, follow the local police. Stop. Once you are safe, follow the local police force on Twitter for updates. Yeah, because so they're presuming that you'll have a phone with you and you'll be able to follow updates on Twitter. What if you haven't got one? But anyway, never mind. Yeah, shush. I'm going to put you in the bathroom if you carry on. She's after attention now. Staying safe on holiday. All right. Oh gosh, the chances of being caught up in a terrorist incident are low, but sadly we've seen atrocities take place in the UK and abroad. It's important everyone stays alert and knows what to do if the worst was to happen. So before you head off on holiday, there are 3 things you should do. Check the latest travel advice for the country you are visiting. I mean, I think that's very important. Some countries you just think, why would you want to go there? Make sure you have adequate travel insurance and check the small print and watch our holiday safety film. We're going to watch that in a minute. And if you find yourself in an emergency, run to a place of safety. Hide rather than confront. Barricade yourself in. Turn your phone to silent and use it only when it's safe to do so. And tell. Make sure you know the local emergency numbers in the country you are travelling to. For all EU countries, call 112. That is the number in Spain. If you're on holiday in Spain and something happens, it's 112. You need to ring. So run, hide, tell. Let's have a look at the video.
Firearms and weapons attacks are thankfully rare. However, in the unlikely event of an attack, being prepared and knowing how to respond is important and may save lives. So this film will give you simple and straightforward advice on what to do if an attack occurs. It's an opportunity to plan your response, minimize the risk, and stay safe. If you hear gunshots, think about your safest option. If there is a safe route, run.
We have to get out of here now.
This is the best option. Act quickly.
Not leave the bag.
Leave belongings behind and insist others go with you. Don't let their indecision slow you down.
Please go. Leave the building immediately.
Once you identify a safe route, run. Make sure your route doesn't put you in the line of fire. Consider your exits and escape routes. If your escape route is no longer safe, find an alternative. Avoid dead ends and bottlenecks. If you can't move to safety, then hide. The best places to hide with protection from gunfire will have a solid physical barrier between you and the attacker. Lock yourself in and move away from the door. Barricade yourself in if you can. Turn your mobile phone to silent and switch off vibrate. Stay as quiet as possible. Don't shout or do anything that could give away your hiding place. If your escape route is still safe, get as far away from the danger area as you can. Only when you are safe, call the police. Tell them clearly where the attack is happening, where you are, how many attackers you have seen.
They came from a terrorist and then one of them went towards the hotel and he went to the right and the other two went to the side.
When the police arrive, they will be armed. They will deal with the immediate threat first to prevent further casualties.
Yeah, I think you're right, David, because when I was at the Grand National, when that bomb scare happened, now they told us, the people I was working for, the tow, that now my son was only 2 weeks old at the time, and I'd left him with my sister. This was the first time I'd worked since I had my son. And I'd gone off to this Grand National, and there's a bloody bomb scare. And you could tell it was a serious one because the way the police were just evacuating everybody. And the people I worked for at the tow, they were saying, no, we'll stay here, because they didn't want to leave the money from, because they had, well, I don't know how much money they would have had there. If you imagine, they've been taking bets on the Grand National all day. This was 15 minutes before the Grand National was due to start. They had fortunes there, fortunes. So they were saying to us all, we're not moving from here, from the office where we were. They just pulled the blinds down. And I just turned around, I just said, well, I'm going. And I just picked my coat up and off I went. And it was terrifying because everybody was trying to get out. And I don't know if I did the right thing or not, because the police were shepherding us all sort of to the exits. But there was through the car park, and all the time you were going through that car park, I was thinking, well, the bomb could be under one of these cars. I could be walking into the bomb. I might have been better off staying there in the shop. Everybody else stayed. I was the only one who walked out. And anyway, we carried on going, and the police were shepherding us towards this exit. But then there started to be a bottleneck, because the exit wasn't very big, and there was hundreds and hundreds of people trying to get out of this exit. I mean, there were other exits, but this particular exit. And then so everyone was being pushed towards it. And it was terrifying. And then somebody, you know, a lot of people were shouting, hang on, we're going to have another Hillsborough if we're not careful, because it was like a mesh fence with just this little door in the middle, and all hundreds of people trying to get through this one little door. And yeah, so everyone was saying, hang on, you know, we're going to end up with another Hillsborough, you know, don't, just patience. You know. Anyway, we did get out. We all got out, and, you know, nobody was injured as far as I know. And then next minute you're on the street outside and you think, oh, what do I do now? What do I do now? There's just hundreds of people, thousands of people milling around Aintree, not knowing what to do, where to go, because we didn't really have, we had mobile phones, but not, you know, not like now where you would get those alerts probably from the police or whatever. Nothing like that then. You had the mobile phone to phone people or send messages. That was it. So I just remember this taxi appearing out of nowhere, and I flagged it down, got in the taxi, and I just said, look, can you take me somewhere where I can make phone calls? You know, anyway, he took me to wasn't a Wetherspoons, but it was a similar sort of thing, like sort of a bar, restaurant, bistro type place on the outskirts of Aintree. And that's when I started ringing people and seeing, and we ended up all meeting up again later. And our company, the Tote, they put us up overnight because we couldn't get our cars. We couldn't go into the car park and get our cars because everything was sealed off. And I never forget, I phoned my mum and dad because I thought, oh, my mum and dad, they'll be really worrying because they know I'm working at the Grand National, and they'll be worrying, they'll be watching it and worrying. And I phoned my dad and I said, oh, Dad, I just want to let you know I'm fine, I'm okay. And he just went, what are you talking about? He wasn't even watching it. So they didn't even know what had happened. So they weren't worried about me at all. But anyway, so it all turned out okay. And then I stayed at the hotel that night. And then the next day, we all stayed at the hotel that night. It was the Hilton. They put us up in the Hilton Hotel just on the outskirts of Aintree. And the next day, my sister came and got me. I went and got my car. And, you know, that was it, really. I wouldn't work there again because they changed the date. You know, they put it back a day or whatever. They did run the Grand National either the next day or the day after, but I wouldn't go. I wouldn't work. That was it as far as I was concerned. Thank you. No, thank you. Not do it. That's the first time I'd ever worked at the Grand National and the last.
This could take some time. The police may be unable to distinguish between you and an attacker. They may treat you firmly, do everything they tell you to.
Yeah, and that's important. Yeah, because they don't know when the police go in. Of course, they don't know who's the, you know, aggressor and who's the victim here, because they're walking into a terrorist situation. And especially, I think that has happened. You know, depending on the colour of your skin or whatever, you can get shot easily because they've probably got an idea in the head of who's. These days, when it's quite often these terror attacks are more to do with maybe Al Qaeda or something like that. Yeah, you've got to be very careful if you've got dark skin or whatever, because you're likely to get a shot if you don't comply, because they don't know who's a victim and who's an aggressor.
Walk towards me. Keep your head
Don't
down.
make any sudden movements or gestures that could be seen as a threat. Stay calm.
Get your head down.
Don't shout or wave, and keep your hands visible so they can see that you're unarmed.
One of them went towards the hotel.
The police may ask for details about the building, the attackers, any hostages and casualties. Only when the threat has been neutralised will you be evacuated to safety.
Keep going! Quickly! Keep running! Come on! No, we'll stay now and see what he does.
Stand up! Get your head down. Walk towards me. Keep your head down.
These kinds of attacks are rare, but having a plan, knowing how to respond, And being prepared will help you stay safe and could save your life.
So run, hide and tell. That's what the government advice is. But it is because, you know, sort of what probably most people haven't even read that. I mean, would you even think of looking for that unless you were doing a YouTube video about terrorism? And so, yeah, in a situations have like that happen so fast, like that situation at the Grand National, you don't have much chance to think logically, really, about what to do. I'm glad that I went, but, you know, you do go through that feeling of, well, you know, am I walking into this bomb? As we were walking through that car park, I was definitely thinking, God, any of these cars could have the bomb underneath it. As it was a fake bomb. As I was saying, it was under a bus somewhere. But you know, they had planted a bomb, but it wasn't a real bomb for once, the IRA. And that was the last sort of threat by the IRA, main threat. What was I going to say now? Oh, so when I went to this pub thing and was sort of phoning around, I got talking to these guys. And they were really sympathetic with the IRA. In fact, they might have been the bombers. Think about it, we all got talking and they were... but having said that, you know, somebody planted it. But, you know, as I say, it was a big mistake the IRA made because the horse racing fraternity is, you know, a lot of the people are naturally sympathetic towards the IRA or were then. So, you know, it was a big mistake that they made. But, yeah, gosh, you know, when you think about it, no wonder that Chinese curse is, may you live in interesting times. You don't want interesting times like that, do you? You know, it's a story to tell, I suppose, but it was horrible. It was horrible and nobody died. You know, so the thought of actually being involved with an incident, you know, where people did die and, you know, where you've seen terrible things. I mean, that was just a situation of panic and it was scary, but nothing really happened. But, you know, the thought of actually being at, you know, places where things do happen is, you know, just so traumatic, even if you survive, you know, awful. Yeah, that was before I worked there, Heather, in the 70s. But we had bomb scare after bomb. Because I worked at Lewis's for 2 years, we were always having bomb scares. It was frequent. Do you know, yeah. One of our managers, Mr. Barr, he was called. And once when we had a bomb scare, that's right, someone had left a bag. Someone had left a bag next to the counter, and we told Mr. Barr about it. He was our supervisor, and he came up. He picked up the bag, put it on the counter, and opened it. It was like, and it's the way he opened it. He sort of went to the bag and he opened it quick like that, as if he opened it quick, it won't blow up in his face, you know. It's just like crazy. But yeah, I think, you know, in Manchester, there was always a big threat from the IRA. You know, it was, and it's strange really when I think about it, because the IRA there are a lot of Irish people in you know, my own father is Irish descent. His parents were Irish immigrants. A lot of people in Manchester are from Ireland originally, or their genealogy, you know. And so, you know, the IRA really, when they were planting bombs in Manchester, they were sort of planting them in a place where, you know, they had a lot of sympathisers. I knew loads of IRA sympathisers. I worked with loads of them at the Social Security. Stop. Tina. Right, go in the bathroom. I worked with, at the Social Security when I worked there. I've been to Irish weddings and that. They were all singing the rebel songs, and so I'm not sure really why they picked on Manchester so much, because they had a lot of natural sympathisers there. Oh, sorry to hear that, BF. Yeah. Is it? Do you know, when I think about it now, of how often we had those bomb scares, and that in the end they just became like just part of, of course I was younger then, so I don't remember being really scared about it, scared of going to work like now I would be. God, if I was working there now and get one bomb scare, you won't see me back there again. Or maybe it's because I didn't have children then, I think, so maybe when you have children and you start thinking differently, I don't know, but I was just young then. I didn't really think about it too much. It was just something that happened. Oh, another bomb scare. Oh, it's a bomb scare. It's just like, oh, another one. It wasn't anything mega then, when I worked at Lewis's, I mean. And do you remember the Woolworths fire, Heather? Because I was working at Lewis's then when the Woolworths set on fire, and of course people were killed, weren't they? So that was a fire. That wasn't a bomb, though, was it? That was a fire. So, oh well, both Facebook and Twitter and all that, they allow so many things that just slip through the net. I don't think they monitor anything, do they? And how many times I've reported things, especially about animal abuse. Sometimes something will come up and it just comes up and you've seen it before you can do anything about it. And sometimes it's people trying to show, that someone's been cruel to an animal and something should happen to him. But I don't want to see that animal being, I don't want to see that, because I can't get that image out of my head then for the rest of the day. If an image comes up of an animal being abused, I'm getting emotional now. I'm not even looking at one. I can't get that image out of my head. Same with a child. I mean, you don't get that really popping up, but quite often you get things popping up about animals, showing terrible things that someone's done to an animal. Oh, this person should be arrested. Well, why are you showing that? I don't want to look at that. I don't. I always report them. If I see animal abuse or any abuse. But as I say, it's mainly animal abuse that you see. Seems like people think that doesn't really matter or something. I always report it, but. Okay, last thing I want to look at before we finish are British values. So I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, when I left Britain, I was always complaining about Britain. We like to have a moan about our politicians, don't we, and our system and that. And we moan. And but now when I look back now at how Britain used to be, and that really the British values that I am proud of or was proud of, where have they gone? It's sad. Anyway, let's have a look. So apparently there are core British values. British values encompass fundamental principles such as democracy, the rule of law, individual liberty, mutual respect, and tolerance of different faiths and beliefs. Now, I just want to call to everyone, whether you're extreme right or extreme left, if you're Muslim, if you're Christian, if you're monster raving loony party, if you're Buddhist, if you're whatever you are, just remember if you're British, these are our values, and these values apply to everybody. You have to respect different views. And, you know, let's not forget, for anyone who says, oh, you know, too many Muslims in our country or whatever. Well, you know, the reason Britain is a cosmopolitan country, favourite, you know, you like going for a curry, don't you? You like going for a Chinese. You like going for an Italian. Because British food is so crap, really, except for fish and chips or a roast dinner. You know, all those things. You embrace the good things about the combination of cultures, as well as the bad. There are bad things. I'm not saying it's all like, hearts and roses and everything's fine. Of course, there are bad things. When I lived in Reading, I lived next door briefly. Well, I lived in the shop above, in the flat above the Ladbroke shop where I worked. And next door, underneath the shop, was a laundrette. And above was a flat that they rented out to students when I first moved there. And they were no problem whatsoever. I remember thinking, oh, God, I've got students next to me. No, they were at the university in Reading. They had one party one night in all the time that I lived next to him. And they invited actually me and my friend to go because, but they came round and they said, look, we're having a party tonight. It was end of term or whatever. It's going to be noisy. Do you want to come along to the party? And this, that, and the other. And we didn't go because they were obviously about 18 or whatever. And we were really old in our 20s, you know. So we didn't go to the party, and it was loud and it was noisy and it did go. But it was one night. And they came and warned us about it. That's fair enough, isn't it? Anyway, then the guy who owned the laundrette, he was Indian. I don't know what religion he was. But at first, he was renting out that flat. Then he came into my shop and said to me, when those students move out at the end of term, I'm moving my family in because I'm going to sell my house. Said, so we'll be neighbours. So I said, oh, great. Well, there was about 10 of them moved in. It was a 2-bedroom flat. Oh, my God. It was, I mean, don't get me wrong. They were fine. They were lovely. They were always offering to cook me some curry or do that. But so many of them in this tiny little flat, you know, that just sort of amazed me, you know. So there are things, you know, that are different in different cultures. We probably wouldn't have 10 people living in one 2-bedroom flat. But maybe nowadays, because nobody can afford a bloody house, maybe we would now. But there are culture differences. Of course there are. And not only, I don't know what religion that guy was. I think he might have been Sikh, actually. But what I'm trying to say is there's good and bad. But, you know, they were very, what's the word? As I say, always offering to help or, you know, bringing food round or whatever. But they were a little bit noisy because there was so many of them, and some of them were children. So you've got to take the good with the bad, haven't you, with different cultures. There's always going to be some things. But then you can be living next door. The worst neighbours I've ever had were British anyway, you know. So, well, and now of the Spanish ones that I've got, but there's worse ones than them. So the thing is, I think what I'm trying to say is there's good and bad in everybody, and there's good, you know, there are different cultures, and we have to take the good and the bad in all of them, I suppose. We just have to be tolerant. So yeah, these values are integral to fostering a safe, inclusive and cohesive society in the UK. The concept of British values has evolved over time, influenced by historical developments and societal changes. These values are embedded within the UK educational system, aiming to prepare young people to be respectful and responsible citizens. Now, don't forget, a lot of them, you know, the young people that aren't respectful and responsible citizens, they're white youths as well. You know, there's good and bad in all races, in all religions. You know, twonks, you know what I always say, twonks are twonks wherever they come from. So British values profoundly impact social interactions and community life, promoting social cohesion and reducing conflicts. They encourage active participation in democratic processes and ensure that diversity is celebrated and respected. So, let's see, what are British values? Are they taught in schools then? British values, are they taught in schools? So I don't know about schools in the UK. How do British values affect everyday life? By promoting behaviours and practices that uphold democracy, respect and tolerance. Now, as a British person living abroad, I can tell you 100% from experience that when I first came to live in Spain, British people were very highly regarded. Very highly regarded. And now, since Brexit, British people are not highly regarded in Spain. There's been a complete turnaround. You know, I think British people now are almost, you know, not reviled, that's the wrong thing, but very held in a lot of suspicion, if you like. You know, and I think if you've never lived in a foreign country and you've never experienced any kind of what's the word, disrespect because of where you come from. I have here in Britain, here in Spain, I've been told to get back to my own country many times, at least 3 or 4 times been told that. Well, you know, this is not Britain, you know, or, you know, if you don't like it, get back to your own country. You know, the sort of thing that people say to immigrants in Britain, you know, the change in the reputation of British people since Brexit, honestly, it's tangible. It's tangible. And, you know, if people don't believe me, I know, because I've lived through it and I know the difference. Changed everything, the way that Spanish people look on British people, you know, because they already thought we were like, you know, drink too. There's always the Benidorm Brigade, you know, so they were a little bit, you know, maybe thinking that British people are a bit crazy. I think what they thought of us before was that we're a little bit eccentric, but very polite, trustworthy. You know, they liked us. They liked dealing with us. You know, and then since Brexit, honestly, I have noticed such a difference in attitudes of Spanish people towards British people. So, yeah, I don't know what's happened, because I feel that British values have got lost somewhere, you know, and all the things I used to complain about, I wish they were back now, you know, because it's like I think it's in our genes, isn't it, to complain about political systems, and it's healthy, of course, for a democracy for us to complain. At least we can complain. You know, you can complain about Keir Starmer, or you can complain about the police, but you're not going to get arrested for complaining about the police, are you? Or, you know, now it's harder to protest than it used to be. But as long as you do peaceful protest, really, you should be able to say, you can protest about the royal family or whatever you don't agree with. At least we've got the freedom to say it, you know. But I don't know, something funny in Britain at the moment, that as an outsider looking in, that's, you know, it feels very strange to me, Britain. Now, it's not a Britain that I recognise, but anyway, maybe there's lots of different reasons for that. British food, but British food, it's not very nice, is it? British, what? No, I'll tell you another story now. So when I was doing what's the word? I was doing an intensive course in Spanish years ago, not long after I first came to Spain. And there were all different nationalities on this course, you know, Swedish, Danish, German, you know, all different nationalities, all studying Spanish. And we had one day they decided to have a gastronomic day, and we all had to take in a dish typical of our country. I should have taken a curry in, actually. When I think about it now, I should have taken a curry. I was racking my brains to think of a British dish that I could take in to, because so it had to be something, I couldn't take fish and chips in or whatever. What would I have taken in? Tia, what would I have taken in? Pie and chips? Stop it. In the bathroom. Bad girl. I was saying, what do I take in anyway? In the end, do you know what I took in? Because I couldn't think of anything. Egg mayonnaise. Egg mayonnaise. That's what I ended up taking into this gastronomic thing. Everybody, all the other nationalities have brought all these really lovely, nice things in, and I've got egg mayonnaise. And it was a really hot day. It was August, and it was just like in the bottom of it was revolting. Nobody tried it, but anyway. I found it. So when you're saying, Heather, about British food, I'm not really. I don't honestly. What is good Britannia mayonnaise? Oh God. I do like roast dinner. Roast dinner is that now. And when I was going out with this Spanish guy and we went over to the UK, oh my God, he never stopped whinging about the food. It's like, just whinged about every meal that was put in front of him. Even when we went to the curry house, like for an Indian, he didn't like that because he don't like spicy food. And the salads were English salads are nothing like what the salads that you get here in Spain. The food here is really nice. It is nice because it's all fresh. Most of the, so anyway, he whinged about everything. But the one thing that he did like was the roast dinner. My cousin made him a roast dinner while we were there on the Sunday, and he did like that. So, Ploughman's lunch. Yeah, maybe. We're not renowned for our gastronomy here, are we, though, really? I mean, Britain is, the thing I like about Britain is you can get everything. You can get nice Chinese. You can get British Chinese. British Chinese is different from Spanish Chinese because in Spain, there's loads of nice Chinese restaurants and they're really cheap, but they're Chinese, whereas in Britain they're Hong Kong Chinese, Cantonese Chinese. There is a difference. So. Yeah. Pork chop. Well, I don't eat pork, so I couldn't be eating pork. But something else, like maybe a chicken. I don't know. The only meat really I eat is chicken and mince. So I don't feel like I'm eating meat. But yeah, I've gone right off pork. But I used to like it. I think it's difficult with British food, isn't it? It's difficult to think. You're right. We have sort of, but it's nice, isn't it, that you can go for a kebab if you want to, or you can go for an Italian or an Indian or a Chinese or anything, really, isn't it? In Britain, you can get any, in Spain, the Spanish are not keen on foreign food. The Spanish like their own food. They like Chinese food because it's cheap and it's not too spicy. They don't, I'm talking in general here. I'm sure there's some Spanish people who do like Indian food, but Indian food is not so popular in Spain with Spanish people. In fact, when I first came to live in Spain, there were no Indians. There's loads now because, you know, if the Brits that have come in, the reason why there's a lot of Indian restaurants now is because there's a lot of Brits in, you know, where there's a lot of Brits, there'll be a lot of Indian restaurants, but they're not so popular in Spanish places because Spanish people in general don't like spicy food that's too spicy. But yeah, like soup, the soup. Meat and mushroom pudding. What's your favourite food, Heather? Lots of tasty food that's British in origin. Maybe it's just a matter of taste. Because spotted dick, steak and chips. Yeah, but that's not really British, is it? I mean, everybody eats steak and chips. You can get steak and chips everywhere. No? Steak and chips. Yeah, well, I don't eat steak. You know, the only problem for me is steak. I'm sure you make it lovely, Heather, but steak is very chewy, isn't it? I don't like it. I don't really like meat that looks like what it is. Now, dessert, I think British desserts are better. Yeah, I have to have my steak cremated. I can't be doing with, I don't think with me and meat is I don't like to think about what it is because I'm a failed vegetarian. That's what I always call myself because, I was a vegetarian for a long time and I lapsed and I've never been able to quite get back into it then. Yeah, your chips are good. I bet they are. Yeah, I do like chips and nicely made chips. There's an art to making chips, isn't there? You know, there is an art to making chips. I'm getting hungry now. It's coming up to lunchtime here. Now, I do like British dessert. The Spanish desserts are not good. You know, they're all right. But, you know, I'm not a dessert person, I suppose. I prefer a starter to a dessert. But the Spanish desserts are, you know, they're too sweet. So I do think, actually, British desserts are a lot better. Yeah. And I like, depending what time of year, isn't it? So in the winter, the heavier desserts are nicer, aren't they? Like apple crumble and I don't really like spotted dick because it's got currants in it. I don't like currants. But I'm trying to think of other sort of heavy desserts. And then in the summer or when it's warmer, it's nicer like cheesecake and things like that. Shh, shh. Stop it! Here, you bad girl. You're a bad girl. Yeah, lots of nice. I can't talk over that, can I? Shut up, or you literally are going in the bathroom while I finish up. So, yeah, some nice things Lorna's come up with there. English breakfast. English breakfast is special, isn't it? Yeah. I think English breakfast is special, yeah. Now, they do a nice rice pudding here in Spain. They put like a creme brulee top and they fire it so that it's crunchy, but they serve it freezing cold from the fridge. And when you ask them to warm it up a little bit, they look at you like you've, fallen off the moon or something. I don't like cold food, so I don't like that cold rice pudding that they serve here. But the brulee top is really nice. Yeah. I was brought up on British food, Heather. My dad was one of those meat and 2 veg guys. He wouldn't eat any of that foreign muck. Oh no, he was dead traditional. And then my mum, she started trying to make different things like spaghetti bolognese and what was it, Hungarian pilaf or something. These were like real big things for my dad to eat. Oh, goulash, that was it, goulash. But really, goulash is just like stew, isn't it? So my dad would eat goulash because it was just like stew. He was real, just typical old school Mancunian, not eat, oh, the smell of that curry. And he wouldn't eat anything different, except for spaghetti bolognese and Hungarian goulash at a push. But that is exactly how I was brought up, just to eat plain British food, if you like. But there's nothing wrong with that, is there? But of course, my parents came from like the war generation, so there was like, my dad had been based in Mombasa or somewhere, and he said, oh, it always smelt wrong, the food there. And I can just imagine him starving to death rather than eat any of that food. That's just how he was. But as he got older, he did get a bit more experimental. He would never have gone for an Indian meal or a Chinese, I don't think. I can't remember him ever going for either. He did. He did, Heather. That foreign muck, that's exactly what he did. So you can imagine when I married a Chinese man, how he was like really happy. No, but I used to cook I learned to cook Chinese food, actually. I can cook Chinese food. I can, but say I can. I made it for years. But the thing is, in Manchester, you've got the Chinatown. You can go and get all the proper ingredients and everything. Struggling here in Spain to get the things to make the proper, make it really taste like it should. But rice is hard to get at the moment, David. Rice is hard to get. Why is that? I know, we're all hungry now. I'm starving, so I'm going to, do you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to go off. I'm going to have a great big whiskey and Coke because it's Saturday. I can only have one because I've got to take number 1 son to work later. But I'm going to go and have a great big whiskey and Coke. I'm going to cook myself something to eat and, and chill. So how have we ended up talking about food? It's because it's lunchtime. We started off talking about bedroom terrorists, and now we're talking about food. Okay, I'm going. So thank you so much. Don't forget to leave your DNA on the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you and enjoy whatever you're going to eat. Okay? Bye.